Is Rafah on the brink of an unprecedented crisis? The escalating conflict in Gaza has left the population vulnerable, particularly in the city of Rafah, which has become a densely populated refuge for over 1.4 million people. Today, we explore the events unfolding in chronological order, shedding light on the situation in Rafah. Rewind to the start of the year, the Israeli military announced the completion of major combat operations in northern Gaza, focusing now on central and southern areas. The conflict triggered by Hamas attacks resulted in significant casualties on both sides, with civilians bearing the brunt. Fast forward to October, Israel launched heavy airstrikes on Gaza, targeting areas where Palestinians were advised to seek safety. The Israeli military struck over 100 targets linked to Hamas, including tunnels and arms depots. Over 1 million people have been displaced in Gaza, with hospitals struggling to cope with medical supplies and fuel shortages. Despite international warnings, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is not backing down from plans for an Israeli ground offensive in Rafah, a city near the Egyptian border where more than 1 million displaced Palestinians are taking shelter. The looming offensive is spurring major concerns from human rights groups and emergency responders on the ground, who warn that any invasion of Rafah could trigger a huge loss of civilian life and upend humanitarian efforts in the Gaza Strip. Rafah, which borders Egypt, is the only place where humanitarian aid is consistently entering Gaza, and Israeli military operations there could hinder what few basic necessities many Palestinian civilians have access to, including food, water, and medical aid. To address those concerns, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he ordered his military to draft a plan to evacuate civilians before the invasion. Israel's main ally, the US, has backed a move into Rafah, but only if a plan is created to keep civilians safe. Speaking at a conference, Netanyahu said it was necessary to root out Hamas everywhere they are hiding, arguing we cannot leave a quarter of Hamas's terrorist battalions intact. Although military and regional political analysts warn that Hamas represents an ideology and will be extremely difficult to wipe out, Israel insists the group's military capabilities can be degraded, and Netanyahu has said victory is within reach. To summarize, the escalating conflict in Rafah has left the population vulnerable, with the impending Israeli assault raising concerns about humanitarian aid access, civilian safety, and potential violations of international law. Despite international warnings, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is not backing down from plans for a ground offensive, spurring major concerns from human rights groups and emergency responders. Israel is insisting on degrading Hamas's military capabilities, with Netanyahu claiming that victory is within reach. The situation remains critical, and the world watches anxiously as events continue to unfold.